Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing and many salutations to your elect across the four winds of this earth, pushing this word in sincerity and in truth. And shalom to the believers that are out there that believe in the words of our testimony. All right, this is going to be another class, another GMS Dallas class. Okay, and today the topic is going to be 2nd Ezra, the 11th chapter. Okay, and it's quite a big chapter. Okay, but it's key prophecies that are written of, namely in the book of Daniel. When you read about that fourth beast, okay, matter of fact, that we can hold Daniel 7:7, going into that fourth beast. And when you read 2nd Ezra, the 11th chapter, it quantifies that fourth beast. Daniel had received visions of the first beast all the way to the fourth, but it wasn't all the way expounded to Daniel when that vision was given unto him. Okay, but it was expounded unto Ezra for prophecy's sake. Okay, and when you look at America, when you read about 2nd Ezra 11, it's talking about ancient Rome, and namely the 12 Caesars, the main Caesars that ruled in ancient Rome. When you read about it in 2nd Ezra 11, all right, and America tries to reenact it, well they do, but when you read it in 2nd Ezra 11, that has nothing to do with America. That's talking about the 12 Caesars that ruled in ancient Rome. Okay? And we're going to go into that. And we can start off on that Daniel 7, whoever has it.
Daniel 7:7. After this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible.
The reason why it says dreadful and terrible, because when those Romans came into power, man, they did works far beyond those other nations that preceded them. Okay? And they also put a lot of hell on the children of Israel. Like under that rule, that's when the Israelites had to scatter into Africa, and those were the Israelites that weren't captured and taken and thrown into the Colosseums and slaughtered and such. Okay, so those Romans did a lot of works, not even just to Israel, but on the planet Earth, the known world around that time. Okay, I believe iron weaponry, all right, was more so introduced through those Romans. All right, go ahead.
Dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. And it had a great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the foot of it.
Great iron teeth. You see, so when they started using that weaponry, all right, there was a lot of people that had difficulties fighting against it. And even we're going to go into it in 2nd Ezra 11, but it talks about how they had all the nations in subject and under check under them. Okay, when they came in power, them nations, the ones that tried to rise up, they failed miserably. Okay, because the Most High had used them as a major pivotal piece in prophecy.
Well, they were blessed with the sword too.
That's right. That's right. That's it. That's it.
If I wanted to add, iron is stronger than brass.
Right.
Brass or bronze.
Right. Absolutely.
Physically. So on a spiritual note, the empire that came latter, with the empire that's in power at that particular time, was dealing with more technology, and was given the technology from Yahweh Yahushua.
That's right. That's right, brother. The sword. They was given a great sword. Okay.
I want to make a quick point just to lead into this idea. Whenever we look into Romans, the 11th chapter, at the top is going into the beginnings of what's known as Pax Romana. For those people, 2nd Ezra, the 11th chapter, Salat of the water. 2nd Ezra, the 11th chapter is going into the beginning of Pax Romana and the list of the Caesars. Now, for y'all listening to the class, go look up Pax Romana, PAXRMOANA. And it'll give you a brief history. This was when Yahushua came on the scene as far as his preaching. And this is when Rome was like the obvious empire of the day. And I was going to read a little bit about Pax Romana, and that'll kind of lead you into 2nd Ezra.
Come.
Right. So this is Pax Romana on Wikipedia. It says Pax Romana, Latin for Roman peace, is a roughly 200-year-long period in Roman history, which is identified with increased and sustained inner hegemonial peace and stability. though not meaning without wars, expansion, and revolts. It says it is traditionally dated as commencing from the ascension of Caesar Augustus, founder of the Roman Principate, in 27 BC, and concluding in 180 AD with the death of Marcus Aurelius. And we always talk about the downfall at 183, with Septimius Severus, everything like that. It says the last of the 5 good emperors, since it was inaugurated. That word inaugurated is another term that was taken from Rome that the U.S. presidents today use. Inauguration, right? And that goes back to the Augurenes, the soothsayers that used to sit in the seat of council for the Caesars. All right, and so that's where you get inauguration. It's all about witchcraft and studying birds.
That's how Rome was named. Romulus and Remus. They forecast who was gonna be at the seat of power.
That's right.
Basically, the Augurenes.
That's exactly right. And so what happened was you had the mythology behind it is that Romulus and Remus brothers,
right,
who were born of a she-wolf, right?
Right.
They had a battle, and basically the Augurenes, they would watch the bird flights, and the birds landed on Romulus,
right,
saying that okay, he was supposed to be the rightful successor or the beginning emperor.
That's
what became known as the Roman
Roman
Empire. Okay, so that's where you get the term. He was inaugurated. Romulus was inaugurated, right?
Interesting.
So it says it was inaugurated by Augustus with the end of the final war of the Roman Republic. It is sometimes called the Pax Augustus. During this period of approximately 2 centuries, the Roman Empire achieved its greatest territorial extent, and its population reached a maximum of up to 70 million people. It says, according to Cassius Dio, the dictatorial reign of Commodus, later followed by the year of the 5 emperors and the crisis of the 3rd century, marked the descent from the kingdom of gold to one of iron and rust. Right? Which goes into that Daniel.
Absolutely.
Perfect. You know what I mean? So, Pax Romana, you can type that in and basically read that on Wikipedia and give yourself an even better understanding of the magnitude of the Roman Empire and its influence at that time.
Man, beautiful. Man. With that being said, let's go on to start 2nd Ezra 11.
This is 2nd Ezra chapter 11, verse 1. It says, Then saw I a dream, and behold, there came up from the sea an eagle, which had 12 feathered wings and 3 heads.
And when you go into that, all right, that's going into that eagle ultimately represents Rome. Okay? And it's very spiritual that links up to Mystery Babylon right now. It links up to Esau.
Esau, right.
All right? Shows you that when you read it in Deuteronomy 28, when it says we were going to be shipped off into a land like as swift as an eagle, shows you that it's going to be very similar or a reflection of Rome. Okay? And those 12 feathers are talking about 12 pivotal emperors that ruled. Okay? And when you go into those 12 feathers, the first one starts with Julius Caesar, which a lot of historians aren't really gonna relate him as being a Caesar. All right, more so an emperor, just because his last name was actually Caesar. When you go into that title of Caesar, it goes into his actual last name. That's where the title czars get. You get the Russian czars, those rulers, and you also have Kaiser, like Kaiser Wilhelm. All right, those Germanic rulers went by that title of Kaiser. It goes back to Caesar. So when you go into these 12 feathers, you got the first one being Julius Caesar. The second one, which a lot of scholars are going to acknowledge to being the first technical Caesar, really he was the second. All right, but it goes into Augustus Caesar. All right, and Augustus Caesar ruled between years 27 BC to 14 AD. All right, and he was actually in the power seat when Yahushua was born. When you read it in Luke, the 1st chapter, it goes into how Caesar Augusta, he was the king around that time, loosely paraphrasing. And we'll pull it up here in a little bit. The third was Tiberius, who ruled 14 AD to 37 AD. The fourth, Caligula.
Tiberius is when you read about him during the time of Acts. Okay?
That's right. Yeah. Caligula was 37 AD to 41 AD. Claudius Caesar was 41 AD to 51 AD. Then you have Nero, which is a very popular name, all right, that we bring up very often. All right, you know, he's the one that looks like Donald Trump a whole lot. All right, acted like him too. 54 AD. You said what, Mike?
I can say this, Claudius was during the time of Acts too. Yeah. Because during the time of Acts there was a famine going on. And that's why they had to, that's why with the whole idea with Safari and Ananias was a big deal because there was a famine going on at the time.
Yeah, I remember Mike Allen did a lesson on that. It was a good lesson too. Highlighting like the tension that was going on at the time, why it was so important for everybody to, you know, bring what they had, and like when you look at the dirt, because I think that's what it talked about.
That's exactly what he said.
It says that there's a dirt, and so when you break it down and look at what was happening geoeconomically, it was like, oh man, the Most High was dealing, you know. The whole ass niggas allowed. You know?
Yeah, straight up.
That's why Paul was getting up rankings as well around the time because he was being selfish.
Beautiful. And you had Nero, all right, and he was in charge. When you hear of the whole burning of Rome, all right, it was really orchestrated by Nero. He was the mastermind behind Rome being burnt and blaming it on us. Okay? Then you have what was called the Year of the Four Emperors in Brother Ariala. I believe you just read about that just a little. The Year of the Four, you said the Five Good Emperors. Okay, then you have also what's called the Year of the Four Emperors. It was 4 emperors that ruled in literally 1 year, which shows you the Most High was hauling them, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they were killing each other.
Yup, they were being demons. You know, matter of fact, real quick, Revelation the 6th chapter.
That was Ortho, Goblin.
It was Galba.
Vitellis.
Galba was
So what's the order of it?
It was Galba that was first, and then it was Ortho afterward, and then it was Vitellius, and then that's when Vespasian came in power afterwards.
Flavian Dynasty began,
Absolutely, and Vespasian was also a key general that was under Nero when that whole burning of Jerusalem had taken place as well. Okay, and you know, Vespasian was also reincarnation of Julius Caesar. And it goes in. Apostle Har mentioned that when he listened to the breakdown that he did going into that. Okay, and it's going to play a huge role into what we're going to continue to read about those 3 heads in 2nd Ezra, the 11th chapter. Anybody got that Revelation 6? That's cool. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 6, and I'm going to start at verse 4.
I'll read it for you, bro.
Okay.
Revelation 6 and 4, it says, "And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth."
Take peace from the earth, and that red horse represents Esau. All right, and Rome was a pivotal piece to take peace from the earth. What we're about to read in 2nd Ezra 11 is what he did to take peace from the earth, what he was doing. Okay, you got it.
Another thing is when you read Revelation 12, Rome is noted as a red dragon.
That's right.
You can tie that to that as well.
Absolutely.
Because and it's Noah's wrong because it was talking about Herod trying to devour Yahweh.
That's right. That's right. Come.
Right.
And Esau's red.
You don't wrong,
Hey, man, as you're speaking, that ties in the Romans with the Idumeans.
That's it.
Because who is the father of Herod, Antipater?
That's right.
Who got his way in by being a counsel for John Hyrcanus II.
That's right.
So that lets you know that Esau Edom wasn't done away with.
Absolutely.
They here?
You know?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
All right, it says, "And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another, and that there was given unto him a great sword."
A great sword. All right, to kill one another. And that's Esau's M.O.
There's another link
Right.
to Esau's that sword. Yeah.
Hey, he wanted to kill Jacob. You know? So if he wanted to kill Jacob, why not his seed want to kill each other? And that's the spirit that they were in. When you go into those emperors, even how Julius Caesar died. He died by Cassius and Brutus, was 2 of the closest people to him. You know? And that whole stigma stuck, especially when we read about these 12 men. Okay? That was it on that precept. We can continue on. We can continue on. It was broke down 12 feathers and such. Absolutely.
Now, when you wrote, you said Julius, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero, Ortho, Vitellius, Vespasian.
And Titus in Domitian.
Titus
The
in
water.
Domitian.
The water.
That's it?
Yep.
Titus in Domitian. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that also goes with Matthew 12 where it said divided when themselves, a kingdom divided,
That's
it
right.
won't stand, you know, because them dudes, these three in the middle, I think a couple of them were killed by the Praetorian guards too. They was, you know, it was Esau, man.
Yeah, Galba only ruled for 7 months.
Yeah,
7
6-7 months.
And then Otho ruled for 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
it
one
was quick
committed
time.
suicide.
That's right. A year of 4 kings.
Yeah.
Imagine America. You got 4 presidents in 1 year. You know, absolutely. Especially right now. Man. You know, this is
The
Rome.
Empire was collapsing too.
That's right.
That's the whole point. Like we mentioned, the dirt from the famine.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to when Augustus, he ruled for over 44 years.
Yep.
The longest, you know.
He were the longest. That's right.
Shit went downhill.
God, absolutely. God, so we can continue in 2nd Ezra, the 11th chapter.
God. 2nd Ezra 11:2, it says, And I saw, and behold, she spread her wings over all the earth, and all the winds of the air blew on her, and were gathered together.
And those winds pretty much just represent the nations that were under their influence around that time. Rome ruled the whole known world around this time. Obviously, this part of the earth wasn't really, I mean, it was known about, but it wasn't nobody inhabiting it for real, you know, except for the northern kingdom. But when you go into this, namely, it's talking about that whole realm of Asia Minor, parts of Africa and such, you know, when it's going into that. And those nations were under that influence, the winds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 3, it says, And I beheld, in all of her feathers there grew other contrary feathers, and they became little feathers and small.
And it's going to expound on those contrary feathers the further we go into this lesson. That's why I'm not going to go into it heavy right now. Just for the lesson's sake, just we can go and continue.
Mm-hmm. Verse 4, it says, But her heads were at rest. The head in the midst was greater than the other, yet rested it with the residue.
All right. Now, when you go into those 3 heads, and it's going to further expound on that later on in the chapter 2. So you add 12 feathers, 2 wings, 12 feathers, 3 heads. Mm-hmm. All right. Those 3 heads within themselves still go into those 12 feathers because you add Julius Caesar. All right. He represents that head in the middle. All right. And then you had
Crassus.
And Crassus. Mm-hmm. And that's what's also called the first triumvirate. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, when you go into the first triumvirate, I'm going to just read the definition. It says it was an informed alliance among 3 prominent politicians in the late Roman Republic. The constitution of the Roman Republic was a complex set of checks and balances designed to prevent a man from rising above the rest and creating a monarchy. And when you go into a monarchy, what that is, pretty much a monarchy is going into, let's say, for example, you have a king. The next person that's going to king is going to be the son of that king, the firstborn, and so forth. It goes into lineage. All right, and there was different kings in past that would use a monarchy for the next person to be in power.
Well, the word monarchy means rule by one. Archy meaning rule, and mono meaning one. Rule by one. And so the purpose of the triumvirate at that time, it was not it wasn't written down. It was an understanding that they said that they was going to have. And what you had was Julius Caesar was the leader of the armies. He was a military commander, while the other guys were more political and economic leaders within Rome. And Julius went out and fought with his armies. He was very known as a people person. He was very charismatic. He rode with his soldiers. He slept with his soldiers. He wasn't uppity. He was very down to earth, and the soldiers loved him. And he took him into the expansion that you're reading about when they first started to expand the Roman Empire. They took down the Gauls, which are known in the area of France and Portugal and Spain and all those areas, and they kind of expanded and brought riches back to Rome. And with that, what Julius Caesar did was he made promises to the soldiers that they would have land, money. When you get back, when we come back, you can be eating. And he delivered. And so when he came back to Rome and Crassus and Pompey, the other guys was like, yo, we said, you trying to become the emperor. He's trying to create a monarchy. we gotta get this dude up out of here. So that's where you start to hear that's where you get the famous story of Et tu Brute.
You too, Brutus?
You too, Brutus. Because he was the final guy to kind of stab him in his back to take him down. Yeah, so it was a conspiracy to take him out. Okay, but him being the head of crashes in Pompeii was the fame that he got from his military conquest. Wow. Okay, that's how Julius. Go read about Julius. He was actually, you read about him, he was a G. He wasn't no whole ass nigga. You know.
Come.
Hey, Jaquan, that's why they got the check and balances concept here in this
Yep,
movie.
absolutely.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? The house and all that.
Yeah, I got a precept. Yup.
That's exactly right.
And Maccabees?
Yup.
Yeah,
Yeah,
That's the spirit,
Yeah,
too.
that's the spirit too. This is First Maccabees 8 and 15. It says, moreover, how had they made for themselves a senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people, to the end they might be well ordered, and that they committed their government to one man every year to rule out a monarchy, pretty much, who ruled over all their country, and that all were obedient to that one, and that there was neither envy nor emulation amongst them.
Con, and that's a spirit too when you go into this, because America had adopted a lot of those customs anyway from those Romans, like we had mentioned earlier, and that shows you that your vote don't matter. Okay, that shows you your vote doesn't matter. It goes all the way back to them back then. They chose who was going to be elected as their ruler, and it still applies to the day. All right, what it is with that vote, just to make you feel good, make you feel like you did something.
A sense of freedom.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the Greeks were the beginning of this beast system. Anyway.
That's right. Con. Yep.
And what precept was that?
This was First
Maccabees 8,
I started at 15.
15.
Pretty much that was the whole concept of voting leaders into power versus the monarchy, where a king, he just sets his son to be heir over the kingdom, you know?
That's right.
That concept started with the Romans.
That's right.
A monarchy?
Huh?
The monarchy started with the Romans?
No, the voting leader into power.
Oh, okay.
Versus the monarchy, where like a king, he would just, you already knew that if he had a son, that's who was going to be next to rule.
That's
But
it.
the Romans created the concept like checks and balances to where the people, so-called people, vote the leader into power.
And that's
And
also
only for a certain term too. That's where they get the term from.
Con. And that's also another reason why they rose more quickly and had more structure than the other nations. Because there was times in history, we read about in the scriptures, where there was a prince that came up and being an heir, and he was a whole ass nigga.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But Rome changed it, and they voted people in, even though they were whole ass niggas. A lot of them was whack too.
Right.
But they voted him in for a reason, because of his influence, what he had done. And that's another reason why they were so strong. All right, a lot of people, they couldn't just get overthrown like other nations, you know? And that's just loosely paraphrasing it, you know? But we can, if anybody has any other points with that, let's continue on the 2nd Ezra 11.
God. Continuing on, 2nd Ezra 11.
Oh, I just wanted to make this point for the people that's listening. Type in First Triumvirate.
Yep.
First Triumvirate. Type that in and just read the first parts, and it'll talk about everything that we just said.
That's right.
2nd Ezra 11 and verse 4. It says, but her heads were at rest, and the head in the midst was greater than the other, yet rested it with the residue.
Julius Caesar was great, and it was acknowledged. We just literally went into that too. You know? Go ahead.
Verse 5, moreover, I beheld, and lo, the eagle flew with her feathers and reigned upon earth, and over them that dwelt therein.
Those are the winds everywhere. You know, it had that influence over the whole known world around that time. Okay?
And they also had vassals.
That's right.
It was a beast system back then too. This was the first beast system, and then America reiterated it through this system.
That's right.
It says in verse 6, and I saw that all things under heaven were subject unto her, and no man spake against her. No, not one creature upon earth.
Right. They had that much influence. We just read earlier in Daniel chapter 7 that they were given, it was a beast having iron teeth, and they subdued the nations. Okay? Now don't get it twisted. It wasn't like those vassals that the elder just mentioned didn't try to conspire to come up against them, but just know that it didn't work. You know what I'm saying? It did not work at all because we just read about the influence that they had, the power that they had. You know, and also the brother just mentioned earlier as well, the Most High had gave them that power to subdue the nations. Okay, right. So there was people that fought up again, that tried, okay, but it didn't work. You know, they had to play their role in prophecy. Just as everybody has to play their role in prophecy. That's why Babylon the Great, it took so long to gain stature, which is America, and now we're seeing its fall, because it had to fulfill a particular measure. One thing that we all have to remember is when there were particular kingdoms that was ruling, the Lord had done it. Okay, that's why, hey, the scriptures also loosely paraphrasing goes into how the Most High set us up one king after another, a nation after another. You know, Daniel talks about how the Most High will raise up the bases of men. These are the Edomites. These are the bases of men right here. Okay, but the Most High allows particular nations to rule to fulfill the measurement. All right, he's very calculated. All this is written anyway. Mm-hmm. So they had to play their role in prophecy for us to be here to do what we're doing today. That's right. You know?
I got a precept.
Come.
This is the Daniel chapter 2, verse 40. It says, the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. So,
yeah, even when you go into iron, bro, it's virtual. I ain't gonna say it's indestructible because it can break, you know. But iron has to be, when it's forged, it has to be forged in a very peculiar way, you know, so it won't be broken so easily.
Carbon.
You know what I'm saying?
It has to be.
Carbon as well.
It has to be forced with carbon in order to make steel. The iron does.
Okay. Con. The water. That's a bet. Spirit is brothers here.
Well, that's what you had. You take the iron ore and you mix it and you create steel weapons. Mm-hmm. And yeah, one time that it was unmatched.
Yeah, that's right. Beautiful. You was about to say something too?
You pretty much broke it down. You said it already.
Okay.
This is Second Ezra chapter 11 in verse 7. It says, and I beheld, and lo, the eagle rose upon her talons, and spake to her feathers, saying, watch not all at once, sleep everyone in his own place, and watch by course.
Go ahead, next verse.
Verse 9. But let the heads be preserved for the last.
Preserved. The Most High preserved it. He had set them up for their times. When you go into the eagle speaking, and it's saying to the feathers, let everyone have its part at their particular time, that goes into all 12 couldn't rule at the same time. And earlier, all right, went into all the different emperors and even the time spans that they had ruled. Okay, so the Most High had established certain ones to rule for this period of time, that period of time, this period of time, and so forth. Okay, so that's what it means when it says, like the brother just read, all right, it says, Sulaki, what verse was that?
Verse 8. It says, verse 8, watch not all at once, sleep everyone in his own place.
Sleep everyone in his own place. All right, certain of them weren't weren't set up to be empowered yet. Okay, Augustus had his particular time to rule. Tiberius had his set time to rule. Claudius and such. That's what that means when you go into that.
It's a progression.
That's right. That's right. Go ahead.
It says in verse 10, and I beheld, and lo, the voice went not out of her heads, but from the midst of her body. And I numbered her contrary feathers, and behold, there were 8 of them.
Now when you read this ain't talking about 8 extra feathers on top of the 12. This 8 is talking about of the 12. All right, these contrary feathers were also mentioned early in the chapters going into the small feathers. Okay, and all that's talking about is just the Roman rulers that didn't have, I don't want to say necessarily as much influence, all right, but they didn't rule as long as particular other ones. Okay, go ahead.
It says, and I looked, verse 12, and I looked, and behold, on the right side there arose one feather, and reigned over all the earth.
And those are those particular rulers that ruled in their set order and arrangement. And the same followed with the left wing. The same order and arrangement the Most High had them set to rule in. Go ahead.
It says, and reigned over all the earth, verse 13, and so it was that when it rained, the end of it came, and the place thereof appeared no more. So the next following stood up, and reigned and had a great time.
Had a great time.
That's talking about Julius.
That's talking about Augustus.
What?
Verse 12 is talking about Julius.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that feather. And then Augustus, yeah, the water. Augustus had that great time. Out of all those 12 feathers, Augustus ruled the longest. There weren't no other rulers that ruled half the time. The brother mentioned it earlier. Augustus ruled 40 to 41 years. All right, that was unheard of back then. You know, and a matter of fact, it's in Luke, the first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
We can get that really quick, just to show, because the scriptures, people like to talk about how the Bible is a mystery, a fairy tale, a fable.
Right.
And they'll say that, none of this stuff really existed.
Right.
If that's the case, why was Augustus mentioned in the book of Luke?
Mm-hmm.
All the world should be taxed.
Yep, exactly. We can get it. This is in
on the coin, yeah.
Matter of fact, it's in Luke 2, Salakia. This is
2,
Luke 2 and
1.
1. It says, and it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And when you read it in the NLT version, it says, and at that time, Roman Emperor Augustus decreed that a census should be taken throughout the Roman Empire. And that's another example that shows you that America is Rome as well, because America does the same exact thing. They do a census. And they've been very heavy on that census recently, making sure that who you are, where you need to be.
Why do you think so?
Okay, so that's another example that shows you this is Rome, but to show you that there is this Bible is the history book. All right, it's a book of many things, but one of its roles that it plays is a history book, and it goes throughout key pivotal points of history. Okay, so it's not a fable, it's not a mystery, no fairy tale, man. That's what they want you to believe. And that's why you're in the docile state that you're in right now, which is the spirit and Satan that's in you anyway. Okay, but the Bible is true. All right, and we're reading this in 2nd Ezra 11, by the way, man. A lot of people will say this isn't canon. They'll say it's not original. This goes in history, and when we read it, when we continue, not only does it go in history, but it wasn't by mistake where it said this second feather ruled longer than all the other ones. And Augustus just so happened to rule way longer than the other ones. Come on now, man. Right. This was written 400 years dang near before Julius Caesar was even born, before he was thought of. Okay? So this is very well indeed canon, man. All right? This book is faithful and true.
That's right. That's
right.
Written 4 times.
That's right.
Man.
That's right.
I just wanted to make a quick note. This is something the Apostle Gabar goes into as far as this, how they used to take note of who was and who was there.
That's right. That's
and how to get the money. That's where you get the term calendar. The word calendar goes back to the word kalends back in ancient Rome. Is when they would announce the first day of the month so you could pay your debt, your taxes. That's where you get calendar from. Because it's all centered around that. And that's how they call it. Calendar. That's why you get paid on what? The 1st and 15th. You get that from kalends.
Very interesting.
Which is Roman. And when you look it up, it says the kalends, it says, is the first day of every month in the Roman calendar. The English word calendar is derived from this word. The Romans called this first day of each month the kalends, signifying the start of a new lunar phase. On this day, the pontiffs would announce the number of days until the next month at the Curia Calibra. In addition, debtors had to pay off their debts on this day. And these debts were inscribed in the Calendria, effectively an accounting book.
Wow.
Damn.
Man, this is Rome 7.
Man.
Come on.
Image of the beast
Yeah.
spoke.
Like everybody
That's right.
spoke, and
Yeah.
it was like, yeah.
He gave life to the beast.
He gave life to the beast. This is it.
Man, wow. Matter of fact, we need to continue that Daniel 7, right? There's a little more to it that goes into what we're going into. Yeah.
I think verse 8 talks about us. That's about America. I think.
Little horn. Matter of fact, this yeah, we can just real quick. Because the elders and brothers that spoke what they just said.
Daniel 7?
Daniel 7, yep, 7
Okay.
and 7.
Daniel 7 and 7. And after this I saw in the night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. It was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. And I
So those
considered
vassals?
those vassal states, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were diverse because we broke that down. They had the Senate, how they voted. You know,
Mm-hmm.
who were in. It says, I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn.
Another little horn. All right, so that fourth beast is not talking about America, but that little horn is there. It's mentioned there. It snuck in there real quick, that quick jazz.
Right.
It shows that that's America right there, because they influence. That horn is nothing but part of that beast anyway.
It came out of the
It
beast.
came out of it.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
so Rome has that influence on America and why America does what they do today. All right, very similar. Rome reincarnated.
And how you know that it's talking about America is because right after that, judgment comes.
That's
the
right.
Lord sets his judgment.
That's right.
And the end is going to come through Babylon, just being destroyed. It's just an extension of that fourth beast.
That's right.
You know, he brought it back to life.
Mhm.
Started with the Renaissance period and ended all the way up
Man.
to Babylon the Great. You know what I'm saying? And they fully revitalized themselves with that beast system. You know,
Con.
fatness of the earth.
That's right. You had a point, Mike? Oliver?
No, I was just standing up because I'm tired.
Oh, con. That was the main point on that in Daniel. We can jump back to that in 2nd Ezra.
Okay. Continuing on, 2nd Ezra chapter 11 and verse 14. It says, and it happened that when it rained, the end of it came also, like as the first, so that it appeared no more.
So Augustus, just like Julius' rule happened, and there was no more, Augustus ruled for them 44 years. After he ruled, there was no more. Then Tiberius came. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 15. Then came there a voice unto it, and it said, Hear thou that hast borne rule over the earth so long.
And this is still that second feather. Okay, this is still Augustus. He that bear rule over the earth so long. Imagine Donald Trump being president for 40 years. You know what I'm saying? Obama, like
120.
yeah, that's unheard of. You know, this is especially when it comes to this way of kings being brought into a system. All right, now monarchies were different, because again, it went into the air after that person died or was about to die, the next one will be raised up. But for this to happen in this type of way was something that was strange. It's strange, okay, but it was also fresh as well. All right, go ahead.
Continuing on, it says, Hear thou that hast borne rule over the earth so long. This I say unto thee, before thou beginnest to appear no more. There shall none after thee attain unto thy time,
That's a UK.
neither unto the half thereof.
Not even half. And Tiberius was close, all right, to half. But it's still, if it wasn't half, it was right at pretty much dang near half. Okay, but Augustus ruled the longest out of all the 12 emperors of Rome, those 12 Caesars. Okay, go ahead.
Then arose the third, and reigned as the other before, and appeared no more also.
Mm-hmm.
Which that was
That was Tiberius.
Okay.
And he ruled 23 years.
Okay.
Which pretty much shows you it was 44 to 45 years Augustus ruled anyway. All right, because that would be right at half or right under half. But it was 23 years that Tiberius ruled, and the other Roman emperors started ruling in smaller amount of times. Like Caligula only ruled for 5 years, Claudius ruled for 10, Nero ruled, he ruled for 14, and then you got the 4 emperors, and then it just goes from there. You know what I'm saying? So the Most High had them fighting one another, like we just read, and it was a lot of grimy stuff that was going on with them. These are Edomites, and Edomites rule with the sword, and they're power hungry. They're known for stabbing their brother in the back.
You're a divided house.
That's
right.
a divided house. That's right, brother.
They just divided against itself, cannot stand.
The simple fact that we got to read about these 12 feathers, and 12 is a big number of them ruling in this time, shows how divided they are. And the inner fighting that was going on.
And its completion.
That's right. Okay.
It says, verse 19, So went it with all the residue, one after another, as that every one reigned, and then appeared no more.
They had their time like we read, and then it was done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Then I beheld, and lo, in process of time, the feathers that followed stood up upon the right side, that they might rule also.
Okay, so those feathers at the left side had their time. All right, which were the first 6 Then the feathers on the other side had their time, which were the second 6, which again goes to 12. Okay, go ahead.
It says, and some of them ruled, but within a while they appeared no more. For some of them were set up, but ruled not.
Go ahead.
After this I looked, and behold, the 12 feathers appeared no more, nor the 2 little feathers.
And even those 2 little feathers are still within the 12. That's still part of that. Okay, again, when it goes in the contrary or little, it just means less significant as the other feathers. That's all it's talking about. It ain't like it was 2 extra feathers on top of the 12. Or no, it's all embodied within the 12. Like I mentioned earlier, even these 3 heads are still part of those feathers when you go into the history of it. Okay.
Verse 23, and there was no more upon the eagle's body, but 3 heads that rested, and 6 little wings.
Okay, 3 heads that rested. All right, the 6 little wings are those contrary feathers on the other side. The 3 heads that rested, we mentioned earlier going into the first triumvirate with Julius Caesar and the other 2 men, Crassus and Pompey. That's right. Now, right here, when you go into these 3 heads I was about to mention, all right, this is going into the start, all right, of Vespasian, and then his 2 sons that was ruling afterwards, which were Titus and Domitian. All right, the Flavian dynasty. Okay, when you go into that word Flavia or Flavius, okay, that word actually means blonde or yellow, which shows you that they are Edomites.
Like Herod.
All right, like yeah.
Because the Lord said he looked like a fox, so he probably had like a like a light kind of tone.
He was like one of them yellow bone cats that had that You know, Herod was he looked like a light skinned Jake.
Right.
But he was an Edomite.
Yeah.
You know?
And more so his characteristics. He had the characteristics of a fox.
Right.
You know, that basically that was Amalek. That was those fake Jews. All over
Straight up.
You know, that it's crazy. Our forefathers was cursing their asses out.
Gone. That's right. That's right. Man, matter of fact, I got the definition of
Going into that Flavia, that's heavy. Whew. Let's talk about Esau, man.
These are Edomites.
Yep.
And the proof is that it's an eagle.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's very clear.
Yeah.
Prophetically, this ain't Japhet. Prophetically, this is Esau.
God.
When you go into it, I typed in Flavia, meaning Flavia, and it says blonde, yellow hair.
Wow.
You know, goes into that. And there's also a book. There's a book that's called Madden's Jewish Coinage. All right, and it just goes into just history of coinage and other things that apply to ancient nations, not even just the Jews. But, you said what? Come. And when you go into that book, there's a particular page in that book, and it's titled the Princes of Edom, and it goes into different coins. And those coins, when you read it, it says the faces of Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. All right, and that's in a book called Madden's Jewish Coinage. All right, in that page, it calls Titus, Domitian, and Vespasian princes of Edom, which are another examples that show you that these are the Edomites. And just because we say blonde hair, blue eye doesn't always mean that an Edomite has to necessarily have blonde hair, blue eyes. But that's one of their MOs. You go into a so-called white person, you think blonde hair, blue eye. Like when you watch that movie Ali. I ain't gonna pray no blonde hair, blue eye Jesus. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately, it just goes back to Edom. Obviously, Edomites can have brown hair, brown eyes, whatever. But it goes back to the so-called Caucasian. All right, and that's the natural look that they have. Okay, the pure leopard. Blonde hair, blue eyes. Yeah. Gone.
Yeah, that's it.